Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know Elise, she's got an immaculate background working for some of the biggest companies, Verizon, MapQuest. So one, I'm grateful to have you, and thank you so much for being here.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. You guys, how's lunch going? You guys doing all right? Getting some food, getting some grub? All right, we're gonna need a little bit of audience participation, people, so let's turn it up. Okay, all right, thank you over here. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Good. So, Elise, I know you recently joined PanasonicWELL as Head of Strategy and Innovation. Can you share with me more about your role and what PanasonicWELL is doing at SubSummit?
Sure. So I'm a first-time SubSummit attendee, and let me just say I'm having a great time. So thank you for the warm welcome into the subscription community. So PanasonicWELL is the new business innovation unit for Panasonic globally, and we are responsible for relentlessly focusing on improving the health and wellness of families around the globe. And while you might think to yourself, the last time I heard or purchased something from Panasonic was when I bought a Walkman in the 80s, the reality is that if you came in a Tesla, your battery was provided by Panasonic. If you flew into Dallas, most likely it was on a Panasonic avionics system. If you happen to live in Japan, they have 90% share of every single home in Japan is wired with Panasonic wiring, and the average Japanese home has 7 to 10 products from Panasonic at any given time. So as we think about what we're doing here specifically at SubSummit, and we think about our focus on improving the wellness of families in the US and in Japan specifically, we are here to meet all of you. We did a trial process and launched a trial product a couple years ago that is a white glove concierge service to help busy families get more health and happiness out of their life. And it turns out we learned a ton about the needs of families. And so we're here to meet partners and others in the business who can help us support our families in the US and Japan, and to think about ways to improve our back end and our front end services. So we're super excited to be here. So thanks for having us.
And PanasonicWELL, is this their first subscription under Panasonic that they've built out?
It is the first subscription product here in the United States. They've tried a couple different things in Japan with varying levels of kind of degrees. So if you think about a traditional hardware company and thinking about playing up the stack, there definitely have been some really interesting opportunities for Panasonic to play around in the subscription market, but we're really just getting started. And so we're looking for all your expertise, particularly for some of my friends on the expo floor. I had an opportunity to meet with a bunch of you this morning to help us kind of improve the ways that we bring that to market and revolutionize what it means to live and be well as a family around the world.
I love it. Well, welcome to the US industry of subscription.
Yeah.
So there's a term that we've all been hearing now for the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, which is AI, right? And a lot of individuals are very familiar with ChatGPT and using that to write content and help in other ways of sort of, let's say, make things a little bit easier or coming out with more variations in a shorter period of time. Now, I feel like in a lot of cases, people still don't know like what AI is, right? I'd love to hear what Panasonic is doing with AI and how they're implementing that over at PanasonicWELL.
Yeah. So when we think about AI, as many of you know, is an industry that's been around for decades. And so Panasonic has been leveraging AI in its hardware products and connected products for decades. But as we think about what we have an opportunity to do today, we're really leveraging these conversational AI models and new frontier technology in order to think about meeting the needs of those families, your families, whether your family is a nuclear family or a community of families, et cetera, in order to really think about bridging those needs in a new and unique way. And so when we talk to families in the US and Japan, they're in a state of crisis. They need help in 3 core areas. They need help to care for one another better, to coordinate, and to communicate. So my family in particular, I have 3 children. We live in the great state of Colorado, for any of you in the mountain state. Here we go, we got a Colorado friends over here. We have 16 animals, 3 children, and I travel 70% of the time. So first of all,
16 animals?
16 animals.
You just slid that in there, kind of.
16, we got lizards, y'all, we got chickens, we got horses, we got cats, we got dogs, and I'm also in the market for another horse. Anyway, we got a lot going on in my family. So one, my husband is incredible, so that's just what you need to know. But when I think about that, coordinating all of those elements and moving pieces between the kids and the animals and the schedules, et cetera, right now I'm trying to do that manually. I'm trying to text my husband, I'm trying to call the vet, I'm trying to get the trainers, I'm trying to make sure that our power went out last night at the house and my parents are there, trying to take care of the other two that aren't with me here. So all of that coordination, we believe that conversational AI can help to really improve that seamless process. In addition to that, my parents are aging and they are now moving in with us as well. And so as I think about ways to care for them, not only do I think about, is mom healthy and has she fallen or what's her cognitive function, but how do I really understand with my dad who has early onset dementia, what are some of the tips and ways that I can leverage conversational AI to help me understand how better to talk to my children about how time with Papa is going to be a little bit different. And so we see ways to integrate this frontier technology, not only in the actual service delivery model, so how do we talk about the services that we're performing on behalf of these families, and to do so in a way where the family is not the product, because you are not the product. Ever, especially for Panasonic.
There we go.
But really thanks for that in the back, but also thinking about what happens kind of on the back end. How do we use that with our agents, with our back end technologies, with the ways that we improve churn analysis and things like that. So when we think about what is Panasonic doing in the areas of conversational AI, we're thinking about it both from the back end and from the front end. But I don't know if you know this, have you ever tried any of the services where you can have a conversational agent make a phone call on your behalf?
I've seen it, but I have not.
Okay, for any pranksters, this is ding dong ditch and prank calling on a whole new level.
2024, ding dong
not
ditch.
endorsed by Panasonic, but you can have an AI agent make a doctor's appointment on your behalf, or to book you a reservation, or to call that place that you can't get into in New York City that is like primo, and they can keep calling over and over again. So there is an incredible amount of opportunity as we think about the ways to do service delivery.
I love it. So on one end, you're using it for the product, as you mentioned, and then you're using it to help better Panasonic's business, whether it's communicating with the customers, maybe for acquisition, coming out with content. So something that I wanted to discuss is like how the brands in this room can use AI within their business, whether it's subscription, membership, or loyalty. And one of the things I think me and you chatted about in our pre-call was, when you think about a retail location, a consumer walks in and a customer service rep would greet them. And you could say, hey, can you tell me about this? Or where can I find this? But when you have a website and there's 10,000 users that land on it, you can't touch them all. Have you seen any AI tools or what are you doing to be able to communicate with all of them in any way? Or have you seen that through any other companies you've been talking to?
Well, the first myth that maybe I would dispel is that you're assuming in the future that they're all going to come to your website.
It's true.
And so I would just think differently about, we now live in a culture where I can get anything I want in any personalized way. So I think there's kind of two things to think about. One is through some of the great vendors that are on the expo floor, I can already see AI embedded as you think about improved churn analysis or other kind of back-end tooling. But it's not just about your first-party data. It's about now AI has an opportunity to leverage major macroeconomic trends as you think about a broader landscape and those impacts of how everything moving in the market is going to impact your particular brand. So I would think bigger and bolder about the data and the insights that you can gather when you have literally an entire brain that has processed the entire global internet at your fingertips, and demand that from your partners and suppliers that they're allowing you in a privacy-friendly way to get access to that information. But then when you think about the front-end services, I also think about this, Starbucks on steroids kind of culture that we have, where today you're waiting for someone to know what they want, to come to your website, and to fall easily into your subscription box categories. But I believe in the future, someone is going to speak or take a picture or take a video, and they're just going to tell you what they want, and they're going to expect you to deliver that. So extreme personalization, extreme customization. I may never, ever think about coming to your website because that is irrelevant in a world of Web3. And so as you think about moving way up the funnel, and you think about what those engagements models looks like, the reality is that the complexity of our business and the demands of customers, our ability to meet those pieces together, I think is going to fundamentally change who sits in your seat a few years from now. I think the data folks, the nerds, they're continuing to take over. I consider myself a flashy nerd because I like sparkly shoes. But as we think about those elements, I think it's going to really change the game when we think about the marketing funnel and how that happens. So the other maybe thing I would kind of think about is how you reach the customer of the future. So today, we all know that word of mouth is the most positive way that you can impact and influence someone. And we have seen what happens in the influencer community when, the average 13-year-old says they want to be an influencer when they grow up. I think we've done something we've maybe gone off track a little bit. But the reality is that when you think about these large language models, those are the influencers of the future. And so if you are not already thinking about your business and how to train these major LLMs, which will power search and discovery for the future, how do you train them on your product offerings and services? How do they become your mouthpiece? How do you think about your AdWords business and sponsorship? How do you get out in front? These conversational large action and language models, I believe, are where you should be spending a lot of time thinking about how do you influence and shape in the tone of voice that feels right for your brand. Rakuten just launched an entire brand new LLM in Japan. Y'all, they're thinking about it. The influencer world, I think, is going to fundamentally change. I can't wait to see it. It's a little scary unless you lean into it.
I think it could be helpful for the audience to maybe going a little bit more about the large language models, what that means, right? Maybe you can give some insight. Like, what does that mean so they have an understanding when you're talking about that, how that's going to affect their business in the future?
Yeah, so when I think about, maybe just show of hands, we'll do the positive one. Who knows what a large language model is? Raise your hand. Okay, who has used ChatGPT within the last 7 days?
Oh.
Okay, all right, okay. So generally speaking, I think you guys understand the experience. You can ask it, you can query it, anything, and now we're moving into large action models, which not only returns the actual text, but allows you to create an action. So book me the cheapest flight from Denver to, DFW as an example. So those are the action sides. I think about, and so how those came into be was effectively a massive scraping of the internet and all information that existed in publicly available forums. They are created with nodes and neural networks in order to learn from each other. And so if you subscribe to a GPT-like service, right, it's now learning and having reinforcement, customized learning based on your individual login. So Chris's annual subscription will now, the more questions that he asks and the more prompts that he has, will now remember his preferences, and that he always wants witty jokes at SubSummit, and he's a fun and cool guy, and that's kind of his tone of voice, et cetera. And so as you think about what does that mean for you and your marketing message, either A, how do you think about taking some of those open source models and creating small language models, or SLMs, or individualized prompts that you can then train and learn for your own brand, so that when customers come to your site, they can explore, they can take action, they can think about beyond just customer service. So if somebody asks this question, this is how I respond. It's far more dynamic than that, because as you know, people, you still call an airline today and you're like, I want to cancel. And you're like, zero, agent. It's like skipping through kind of that notion up front. So anyway, as I think about that kind of world, think about those types of customer experiences, the type of questions that you can't answer today, or every time your CX agent fails today, find ways to think about using new frontier technology, particularly in the conversational AI, in order to kind of bolster that experience.
And what about, I've had this thought about, I know you talked about Web3, but right now, the website or your brand already knowing who's landing on the website, and then presenting the right product offering in front of them. So an example might be like, I went to Scott's Miracle-Gro. Well, the site should know that I'm logging in from Michigan. So the fertilizer that it should show me should be fertilizer for Michigan grass, versus making me go through the whole site and trying to identify the right fertilizer for my grass, because the fertilizer in my grass here in Michigan would be different than it would be if I lived in Cali, right? So have you seen anything like that happening? Or
I have, but instead of ever going, so what you had decided is, I need fertilizer.
So I'm gonna go to Scott's.
And I like Scott's.
Yes.
And that will still happen for a period of time, and maybe even forever, right? If we just go less dramatic, which is not nearly as fun. But if we were to go super dramatic, the reality is that there is going to be an intermediary, whether it's the new generation of search or a suite of services for the family or for home improvement, where I can say either A, what are the things that I need to do to prepare to have a killer lawn or to throw the best Memorial Day party this summer? And it's like boom, boom, boom,
already.
boom. Did you know that Miracle-Gro, Scott's, they got something specifically for you? Because Chris, like, we got our eye on you. Or even before that, the next year, they're like, hey, I know that you throw a killer 4th of July party, so don't forget your Budweiser. It's already being shipped. Do you want us to do it, ship it to your house, et cetera, et cetera. So moving in front of that for these prompt recommendation engines, not for, you asked for Miracle-Gro, and so I'm giving you Miracle-Gro.
It's knowing.
And did you want me to send the invitations? And do you want where are my handwritten folks? I was by their super cool robot arm with a handwritten thing. A little shout out to you guys. You want a handwritten invitation? And we've just done it all for you.
And then imagine if it's like, oh, by the way, it's on sale here. Right? Versus that would be even better.
That's exactly right. Or like, yeah, we already know that you have a Prime membership, so it's already coming to your door tomorrow.
And you need this much.
So when you combine the language of what you want and what you need with the action to fulfill the entire end-to-end process, that's where, I won't even say that's where we're going because the technology exists right now. So for those that are early adopters, if for any of you who are in a public company, the first people to market typically have a 10% increase in shareholder value within the first 3 years that they are first to market, as what my friends at Verizon taught me after spending almost a decade in telco. So if you want to get after it and you want to get promoted, I mean, Chris, he wants to get promoted. He talked about it. Maybe think about it in his performance review. Anyway, y'all get on it. Get on it or get disrupted.
So at least we got, I'm going to ask you one last question. We have a couple of minutes. What would be something, a takeaway that this audience could go back to their team and think about implementing that could have a positive effect on their business now? I know that wasn't on the questionnaire.
I'm trying to think of one thing and the most impactful thing. The most impactful thing that I would do for my team, which we're doing at PanasonicWELL today, and I got some of my party people right here in the front, so I see you people, is this. I would host a one-day hackathon for every single person in your team or in your company to say, figure out a way to develop an AI agent that's going to improve your job at work today. So whether it is I'm in marketing, and I want to build an AI agent to do my LinkedIn posts, which I've done. So that's super interesting, by the way, if you are like me and don't love social media, but it is a requirement of the job. Also, you can look back at my social media posts and be like, it's a little bit like that, so your feedback is welcome. But you can basically you can take all of your training data from every LinkedIn post that you've ever done, you put it into a model, and then you say, build me a content calendar. So it's super interesting from the marketing side. If you are a copywriter, if you are a finance person who you're looking at, how can I improve my model analysis? So take that, create a private model. Don't put it in a public model. Create a private model, right, and do that. But challenge your teams to use it, because once you get that cleverness of understanding and owning a use case for yourself to say, I can now improve my productivity or my thoughtfulness or my creative thinking by 10%, they've added more value to your team, so you're getting more. They're helping you prepare for the future because now they've owned an opportunity themselves, and they now have contributed also to IP that is owned by the company, depending on what your terms and conditions are for your, anyway, any HR people in the room. But anyway, there's an opportunity to allow people to innovate themselves in every single job function. And the best way to meet your customers' needs, in my opinion, is to first embed that knowledge and understanding inside of your teams and just wait for the magic to happen and some of the questions that it will incite. So that's my takeaway. Host a challenge and then talk about it and talk about what was scary and what was hard and what was super, super simple. Yeah, go from there.
I love it. Elise, that was amazing. Thank you so much for coming, and look forward to seeing you later on.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.